Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're going to give it one more minute, and then we'll start right on time at 1 o'clock Eastern.
And the recording will be shared with them right after. So if they join a little late or have to leave early.
Absolutely. All right. Well, welcome everyone to today's webinar. You are going to be hearing from Cal DiJulius. He's a customer experience consultant here at the DiJulius Group, and he is going to be helping you understand the unique behaviors, attitudes, and preferences of his generation with today's webinar titled From Boomers to Zoomers. So just a few things before we get started. There are two different ways that you'll be able to communicate with us today. First is through the chat feature. So if there's any technical issues or any additional questions that you should have in regards to follow-up or kind of what comes next, I will be monitoring the chat our entire time today, so feel free to send a message and I will get back to you right away. And then Cal will also be taking live Q&A at the end of his presentation. So if you have any questions that you would like him to answer live while we are together, you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And as Cal mentioned, everyone who registered for today's webinar will be receiving a follow-up email from me where I will include not only the recording of today's webinar, but also a PDF copy of Cal's slides. So you'll have that as a frame of reference as well. And now I am going to turn it over to Cal.
Thanks, Lens. All right. So I gave a presentation on this at our recent conference, our annual conference, From Boomers to Zoomers, or the Customer Service Revolution. But my breakout was titled From Boomers to Zoomers. And I wanted to focus a little bit on this topic of a generational gap because I myself am in an organization where I'm the youngest employee currently. And, there's, of course, challenges and growing pains that all of organizations are experiencing right now as we transition into a new climate or a new population of employees. And bridging that gap is really important. But so I wanted to take a dive into that. So this summer I spent a lot of time researching it and spending some time learning just about the different generations and historically how we've accomplished and tackled these tasks in the past. And so I'm excited to kind of spend that time with you guys today. And so to start this, you have this photo and you have Mike on the left and Luna on the right. By the way, I generated this using AI, so that's very Gen Z of me. But you have two colleagues, Mike on the left and Luna on the right. And Mike joined this organization. He remembers the day he stepped into the elevator with a crisp resume in his hand, and he had a freshly ironed suit, and he was eagerly anticipating a lifelong tenure and hopefully a gold watch upon retirement. And then you flash forward to 2023, and you can meet or virtually meet Luna, who didn't have to step out of her bed, let alone step into an elevator. We just hope that she combs her hair before logging onto Zoom. Now, what I'm not going to tell you today is if your company should be working solely remote or in person. That's very specific to each business, and those needs need to be evaluated. I really sincerely hope that surgeons are not, doing surgery from Zoom. And organizations, have specific needs. And if it's really important for you to be in person, or it's really important for you to shift to virtual like we did, where we now, consultants can live anywhere across the world, technically. It's very specific and organization specific, and we'll talk about that a little later. But what I am going to cover is that while people like Mike could quite possibly have retired from the very same desk that he started at, Luna isn't sure if she'll be at this company for 40 minutes, 40 days, or 40 years. The career ladder for Mike is linear, and for Luna, it's a little more like a multi-dimensional web. So it's two different generations, two vastly different career trajectories, and let's dive into this seismic shift and what it means for the future of work. And so I'm going to start with a few quotes, and I want you to think to yourselves who these quotes are talking about, and then we'll cover them at the end. So the first one is, "They are all slackers. They're all sleeping in their clothes, moaning about the national debt they've inherited." Sounds a little familiar. "The whiners want everything now. A generation raised on the principle of instant satisfaction simply cannot understand the concepts of long-term planning and deferred gratification." Also something I've heard recently. "And their progress," he predicted, "is just not going to match that of their parents." Well, sounds like headlines that we've heard in the news over the past couple of years between millennials, Gen Zers, etc. And I have to tell you, it's actually not. The first one is from an article published in 1994 about Gen Xers. The second one is about boomers. It was published in the New York Times in 1982. And the last one was about Generation X as well. It was published in the New Yorker in 93. And now I'm not a big, fan of using the word fake news, but I will have to give it to you guys on this one. This is a bit of fake news, right? We hear this time and time again. And the reason I included this was to show us all that as I was exploring just the generational shifts that we've historically seen over the past, 100 years, we've seen the exact same thing said about each generation time and time again, literally time and time again. These were the covers of the Time magazine articles. And as a matter of fact, these organizations or these generations were able to figure it out despite all the things that were said about them back then. And so while I'm not discounting the anxieties or fears of older generations worrying about working with younger generations or vice versa, these organizations figured it out because they made a few simple changes. And so we are not asking you to completely reinvent your organization. It's not all about us as Gen Zers. It's nothing new. We've done this before. And it's simply just a generational gap. And navigating that is the key to creating a long-term sustainable organization that's able to evolve into the modern world. So a generational gap is exactly what it sounds like. It's a difference in outlooks and opinions between one generation and another. These differences may relate to beliefs, politics, language, work, demographics, values, and they can cause misunderstandings. I mean, people that were boomers experience completely different things in their lives that shaped their perspective on the world than people that are, my generation or millennials or so on and so forth. But it's possible for these generations to overcome their differences and maintain functional relationships. We've done that. We've seen it before. It happens, it's happened time and time again. And previous ways of working and interacting between employers and employees are being disrupted by Gen Z's entry into the workforce because of different expectations regarding atmosphere, culture, and support at work. Again, it sounds like, you hear all the expectations that we have with Gen Zers have with, high pay, flexible hours, et cetera. And I think people get very frustrated, and I can understand that. They get very irritated with, how do you, as an entry-level employee, how do you come in with all of these demands and expectations when we've been working here for, we had to earn our vacation time, we had to earn all these things. And I don't think that any organization needs to, again, reinvent the wheel completely or cater only to what our wants and needs are. But I think that there is a way to look at this, just take a look at our perspective and make some minor compromises on both ends to help create a healthy working environment that's sustainable going forward. So before we jump too far into it, I want to just establish what these each generation is so that we know what we're talking about. So the first is the alpha generation. Those are people between 2013 and 2025. So they're the freshest right now. I believe there's no alphas on here. I'd be very impressed. Then you have Gen Z, which is 97 to 2012. So I'm literally right on the cusp. Luckily I'm 1997. And the reason that that's interesting is because I am the first Gen Z, like my year would be the first Gen Z in the workforce, like the first of us in the workforce. So it's interesting to see my peers and I like entering this new phase of life, because a lot of the comments being made about Gen Zs or millennials predated us. Like they were before we even entered the workforce. So it's interesting to see if these are like a self-fulfilling prophecy or if it's all a bunch of BS. Then you have millennials, which is Gen Y, so 1981 to 96. You have Gen Xers, which is 1965 to 1980. Then you have boomers, who were born between 1946 and 1964. And lastly, you have that silent generation, which is 1928 to 1945. I would also be impressed if there's people that are, silent generation on here, but that generation loves to work. So when I did this presentation in person, I had the room, raise their hands based on each generation that they were in. And then I had the Gen Xers, boomers, and silent generation keep their hands up, and it was the majority of the room. Again, that was a conference for often upper level management, upper level leadership. So predominantly the room was filled with a lot of people that were Gen Xers, Boomers, and Silent Generation. And the reason I did that was because I showed them this graph following that, which was the workforce in 2025 is going to be 75% Gen Zers or millennials, or we call them zillennials, I guess. In my research, I found a lot of people referring to the mix of generation as that. And then that other generation, which was predominantly the population of the room, is just going to make up 25%. So, if this didn't make them feel old, I don't know what will, because the generation that's, we're coming, whether you like it or not. And so again, I'm not saying that we have to completely cater to everything that our wants and needs are, but understanding how to work together to continue the organization's goals is huge. So we all hear about like a personal awakening, and a personal awakening is when you have like a near-death experience and you are like, you come home and have like this midlife crisis because you realize your days are numbered and you were so close to death. Some people buy a car, or they go on vacations, or some people file for divorce, whatever it is. They reevaluate their lives and realize that the days on earth are numbered, and they realize what they want and will not tolerate anymore. And so we call what the pandemic did to my generation and millennials really a professional awakening. And while it certainly impacted all of us differently. It was interesting for my generation because we were either not in our careers yet, or like millennials, they were freshly new into the career, into their workforce. And so it was this shift where similar to this near-death experience, where we reevaluated our professional careers and what we wanted and what we won't tolerate anymore. And so, of course, if any of us had a crystal ball, and looked towards the end of our careers, it's not going to look what we thought it was going to look like. That's certainly true, I think, for anyone you talk to. But I don't think that for generations older than millennials, it's ever really happened in a matter of a week, right? So it probably didn't change within a matter of minutes. And let's take me, for example. So my name is Cal DiJulius. I'm an experienced consultant here at the DiJulius Group. I've been in this world for my whole life because my parents started the business, the consulting firm, after starting salons and spas, and so I've been around this this hospitality industry forever. And my plan really wasn't to come work here. Really, it was I was in school. I graduated from American University in 2020, and so the pandemic hit right in my senior spring, so in March of 2020. And so the plan was to join the workforce after graduation. I had a job lined up in New York. I was, all ready to go. And that quickly changed. And instead of joining that workforce, people's offers were rescinded. They couldn't afford their rent. We were new to the workforce. We didn't have lifelong savings to depend on to get us through these next couple of months. And so while it was scary for everyone, it really did alter the trajectory of many of our careers. And so I stayed in school for 2 more years, of course. Why not just, stay on the parents' dime for a few more years, or take out some student loans to get an MBA, where historically you needed years of experience before you could even be eligible for an MBA program, but they were ready to accept anyone. And so what's interesting to point out is that I personally have never worked in an office before, ever. And I think that's, aside from an internship here and there, but formally working every day, I think that's really interesting, because I would say that since I'm that first 1997 is the first year of people that could possibly be Gen Zers in the workforce. I think there's a lot of us that have never worked in an office before. I know my roommate is a consultant at another company, and she certainly has not worked in an office before. Her office is in DC. We live in New York. And so our expectations are based on what our worldview is, and this has been our worldview from a work perspective. And so it's important to keep this in mind, because I think my narrative here is true for a lot of people in my situation. I think as we go younger, in the people who pandemic babies, or kids that were in high school or college throughout the whole pandemic, I think we're going to even see more of a disconnect from what was formerly the idea of what was the perfect office job, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, to more of like this hybrid model. And again, that might not be your model, and that's okay. And we'll touch on that in a little bit, but that is probably why it's important to us. And so keep that in mind as we go on. as we continue down this. So I have a video for you guys that will explain this little pandemic awakening, this professional awakening because of the pandemic.
The pandemic altered my life in a way where it made me remember that like it's my life at the end of the day and I get to make the decisions about it.
I knew that my job at a restaurant and those days were over, that I wanted to go to a place that had well-being in mind.
I finally had time to like sit with myself and reflect on my life.
Having that moment of reflection just reminded me of my goals and what I want for myself and my family.
I feel like the bar has really gone down for what people are willing to tolerate after having all this time to reflect.
Made a change that I like and it needs to stay the same is remote working. People get to enjoy life more, but still get to enjoy the city more and they're not burnt out.
Even if it's as simple as you get more personal days.
Employees are people too, with families and responsibilities and things that they do outside of work.
I think the thing that we really need for jobs to understand is humanity. Like we want to do our jobs, but we just need some flexibility. That's all we need.
This video does a good job of touching on a little bit of, or giving us a little bit of perspective as to why we kind of have these feelings. And you hear a lot of like, they don't want to come into the office, or they want to work from home, or they want unlimited vacation time, whatever it is. This will provide a little bit of perspective as to why. And so keeping that in mind when you're crafting your guidelines or your work structure or your workflow is important, even if you don't completely alter what you're already doing. I think it is important. And it is also important to think, aside from the pandemic, older generations, including baby boomers and many Gen X workers, were conditioned to view employment as a privilege. They were adhering to the first in, last one out work ethic. And this was the seen as the path to success for, promotions and et cetera. But in contrast, Generation Z, having entered the professional world during the pandemic, places a higher value on this work-life balance and tends to have this work to live mentality. We believe in things like mental health and emotional states in contributing to our success and productivity at work. And unlike older generations, we've had the freedom to pursue careers aligned with our passions and a liberty that older generations maybe feel like they didn't have. I think that we watched a lot of people, and whether it's our parents, our neighbors, our grandparents, work very hard. And there were two outcomes often. There were people that worked extremely hard and it may not have been worth it. They still struggled to get by. And then we saw people that, worked extremely hard and were very, very successful, but it came at the cost of their family and their relationships. And I think a lot of people that are younger, we watched those sacrifices be made and we realized that we really don't want that. We want a purpose. And I think that the truth is that the currency for the research tells us the currency for millennials and Gen Zers is purpose. And we have this purpose over paychecks mentality. And, for Gen Z, it's not just about the money. We crave to be part of something bigger. And I think that this is also interesting to older generations, especially management or people that founded the businesses that you're working for. If you talk to them and ask or if that's you on here, how nice is that and how refreshing is that to hear again? Because for so long, we worked with organizations that complained about how their employees were completely detached from the mission, completely detached from the vision of the company, of the founders, the values of what they put in the company. And now, finally, you have people that actually crave and want that purpose again, aside from just the paycheck, aside from just the hours on site. People want to feel that what they're doing matters. And, a lot of us are doing really incredible work, and we work for organizations that are doing really incredible work. And sometimes it's just shifting the way we communicate that to make people feel that this is not a desk job. This is not a job, that's doing XYZ. Your job description doesn't end here. Your job description contributes to the greater good of our customers, the organization as a whole. And so communicating that is really, really important. So Authenticity is the most important value for Gen Z, even beyond future plans of being rich. They are more concerned with having a fulfilling career than making a lot of money. And Gen Zs want to be empowered by employers to make the difference they value. So all of us, a lot of our organizations already have this. They already have a purpose. They already have a reason that we exist, or a reason that we're doing the work that we do. That's why people founded their companies. And it's just re-articulating that to us and telling us, this is the firsthand seeing the difference that you're making in the lives of the people that depend on the work that you do. And that's huge, whether or not you're a B2B, B2C, if you're just an assistant for internally and you never see the end user, your customer is the person that depends on the work that you're doing. And so as an organization, if we can communicate that to our team and give them that purpose, give them that vision, to see the results, that's key. Now, a lot of you probably feel like this. I don't want to offend anyone or trigger someone. I always have it in the back of my mind that I'm going to get angry one day and I'm going to get freaking canceled. I certainly get it. There's this thing that I hate. It's called cancel culture. I think many of us hate it. And there are some simple changes we can make to allow everyone's voices to be heard. But we don't have to focus on worrying about being canceled as much as we do just on focusing on making a few changes to make sure everyone's part of the narrative. And so we call this, cancel culture. But in order to cancel the cancel culture, we really just have to focus on culture. And we can avoid cancel culture if we cancel the cancel and focus on culture. And if we can really nail down our culture and make sure it's key, we can avoid, feeling like that. So what is our culture? How does it look like? And how can we adapt and meet the needs of our workforce? The Great Resignation or quiet quitting is not an indictment on employees, rather employers' lack of building a world-class culture. If your employees want to leave, it's because they don't feel that what they're doing is being valued or that they're providing value to anyone or the end user. Gen Zs are not willing to trade dollars or hours for dollars anymore. So we are different. We believe in purpose. And how do we rework that culture to emphasize that purpose? So emphasize your company's purpose, particularly any goals transcending profit, and highlight how roles contribute to these objectives and positive impact of the work in order to meet Gen Z's desire for alignment between personal and professional endeavors. So that's huge. Again, bridging that gap. And so we do this all the time with organizations. Some of you on here probably already have what was previously called a service vision, now is a customer experience action statement. But many of you have this. It's the way that we feel that we tell the story to our team members. It's a clear call to action, North Star, that tells us internally why we do the work that we do and why it's important, so that we can all kind of unify and rally behind this. And I think this is key. And if you do have it, that's great. I would just take a look at it and see if it's still being used, or see if it's still being used in the way that maybe Gen Z or millennials would find it most useful. So we'll talk about that. So a customer experience action statement is a clear call to action of what each employee should intentionally achieve every time they interact with a customer. And again, a customer is anyone that depends on the work that you do. And so sometimes our customers are internal only, and that's fine. They depend on they depend on the work that you do. And at the end of the day, the organization benefits when all of our customers internally and externally are benefiting. The customer experience action statement serves as a rallying point across the organization by being the one thing that all employees have in common, no matter what the individual job or title may be. It's the way that we can bridge the gap between generations, because no matter, if you were here for 40 years or 4 minutes, despite your history, we're all here for the exact same purpose, the exact same reason, and it's our action statement. And so having this customer experience action statement really is a great way to bridge that generational divide, because it doesn't have to take into account your previous work experiences, your previous life experiences, your goals. It's just your current work experience, your current work, where you're at today. That at our organization, we do things differently, etc. So let's think about the Ritz-Carlton and Starbucks. The Ritz-Carlton and Starbucks both recruit from the exact same labor pool as their competitors. A Hilton hotel across the street from a Ritz-Carlton probably has the exact same front desk staff, front line employees as the Ritz-Carlton across the street. Their management is going to be a little different. Of course, their people is, they've come from a lifetime of hospitality at the Ritz-Carlton, or they've been through tremendous training. But the frontline employees are the people that work with our customers the most. They interact with our customers the most, and oftentimes they're the least trained and lowest paid employees. But they often do come from the same age range and exactly same demographic as our competitors. They both pay their employees similarly to what their competition does. And yet both the Ritz-Carlton and Starbucks employees perform completely differently than their competitors' employees. And so we've worked with both the Ritz-Carlton and Starbucks, and we've kind of really dove into why this is the case, but it's really comes back to they all are rallying behind this common goal, this common vision, which is a customer experience action statement. And so back in 2009, long before I was 12 or 9, or no, I was 11. Long before I joined the DiJulius group, my dad was working with Starbucks, and they hired him to create a customer experience action statement. And their customer experience action statement at the time was to inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, and one neighborhood at a time. And he got in there and he was like, well, I don't know what they need me for. This sounds really great, right? To inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, and one neighborhood at a time. I mean, that's fantastic. He couldn't write that. Maybe ChatGPT could today, but back then. And then he asked to take a look at, what were the principles and how they were doing this every single day. And this is what they got. I mean, how can one person do all of this? I mean, most people don't know a mission, a vision, the core values of the company. That's fine. These are slides that are supposed to be used at our annual gatherings. What they do need to know is something that unifies them, that they can rally behind, and that they can deliver each and every time consistently. It's the reason that a venti soy latte tastes the same in New York City today as it did in Washington, D.C. last week when I ordered it. Different staff, same training. And so we're going to cancel this. And then the customer experience action statement for Starbucks lived within their aprons. So when they would put their apron on every day, they would see it. And it reads, we create inspired moments in each customer's day. And the reason it says that is because versus the other one was because this is actionable. I can't nurture the human spirit when I'm serving somebody's cup of coffee. What I can do is find ways to create inspired moments in each customer's day. What that may look like is, I come in every single day, they know my name. They see Cal at the end of the line today, and I'm in a big rush and a big hurry, and there's a line out the door, and I came in at 1:27 when I'm usually there at 1:15, and that I need to get to work by X time. Oh yeah, Cal, we have your drink ready for you, get us tomorrow. Things like that create those inspired moments. When you overhear a kid talking about how it's their birthday, you give them a cake pop. Those things are inspired moments. And Starbucks really nails down the training on that. And there's a reason why it's on the inside of the apron rather than customer facing. And the reason is because it is not supposed to be for the customers. It's for us. It's for the team members. It's our purpose, our vision, the things that we're supposed to act on, and what brings us together and unifies us, whether we're the CEO or we're the person unlocking the door in the morning at each location. We can all find ways to create inspired moments in each customer's day. And so we found that this was a great thing for Starbucks. And I upon my research, I found this blog where one of the team members, a black apron, by the way, it means they're a manager. And so one of the team members was talking about this at Starbucks, and she said the inside of the Starbucks apron says we create inspired moments in each customer's day. It's not just a Starbucks thing. I think if you're living your life right, it's fundamental of life. It's a privilege in any context, whether it's Starbucks related or not, to live a life striving to make others happy and inspiring the human spirit. Be forgiving, be generous, and put yourself in the shoes of others. And so what I loved about this was because it talks about how this is outside of Starbucks, how the difference that this was making in the lives of the team members, the employees, while they're not at work. And I think that's what Generation Z and millennials really crave, is that their work is really valued. And I think that they hit the nail on the head with this one. So good job, Dad, on that. And then there was also a reply that was really good to this, but it was another employee saying, this is so true. Since starting working with Starbucks, I've learned to apply this to my life outside of work. This makes things so much easier for me. When someone gets grumpy with me at work, like customers or coworkers or outside of work, I try to make the best of it and see the positive. Sometimes I know I make their day, and other times I know I did my best. Either way, I know I'm doing all I can to inspire someone, even if it's just for that moment. That's huge. The fact that a quote on the inside of an apron that some people might not even notice when they're putting it on is that powerful to make us all feel that serving a cup of coffee is impacting us outside of work, outside of our lives when we're at home with our loved ones. That's huge. I mean, they really hit the nail on the head with that.
We want to go back to what we really stand for, and we want to provide our customers and our people a sense of pride and confidence in the authenticity of the Starbucks experience.
We have a lot of work to do, but our research tells us we're making real progress on every measure of customer satisfaction.
We're not in the transaction speed business. We're in the business, literally, of enhancing people's days. Starbucks' best days, I truly believe, are in front of us. We've never been in the coffee business serving people. We've always been in the people business serving coffee.
We are not in the coffee business serving people. We are in the people business serving coffee. Howard shares this with his partners, his employees, and I think because he shared purpose with his partners and his employees, it showed tremendous benefits, right? There were other coffee shops. You could make coffee at home. And I think that any of us could take this quote and say that we're not in the salon business serving people. We are in the people business serving haircuts, whatever it is. You could take your product or service that you guys do most and put it there and realize that because we're in the people business, we need to find a way to take care of our people internally and externally, regardless of age, regardless of demographic, regardless of race, whatever it is, we need to find ways to do that. And I think that the first step can really be a customer experience action statement, which we do with companies all the time via workshops, and we can chat about that offline, but it's a great way because it takes in the thoughts of everyone, not just the people at the top, not just the people serving employees, because it really bridges that gap. And so everyone feels that they were very much part of that process. So some of you might be thinking, but my company already has a mission, and that's okay. I'm going to tell you a secret. Nobody cares about your company's mission, your purpose, or your core values. Again, it's a slideshow that is on the screen. We don't care if our salon team members can recite our mission verbatim. It's what got them to attracted them to apply. But from a standpoint of every single day, they don't need to be telling the story of my parents and my dad being the UPS driver that had a vision to create a different lives for hairdressers every single day. That's great. It's the reason that we show up, or the reason we start working here. But the reason that we do our job every single day is because of a customer experience action statement or a CX action statement. And so a lot of companies have mission statements and purpose statements, and they don't want to have another statement, but people don't remember our mission. They don't remember our purpose, and that's okay. I love our, mission and purpose at the DiJulius Group. But if I really want my team members to remember one thing, it's the customer experience action statement. So your mission is who we are going to be. Your purpose statement is why we exist. And then your CX action statement is what we have to do each and every time. Each and every time. So a mission statement and purpose statement, they're not actionable. They're not things that we can do every single day. It gets advertised to the public, right? And so an action statement is actionable. It's things that we can be consistently doing each and every time, and it's how we achieve the mission and purpose. So I'm going to give you an example. I work with a company called New Day USA. They are a veterans mortgage company out of Fulton, Maryland, and in Palm Beach, Florida. And they serve veterans, and they predominantly serve veterans and their families that are Vietnam veterans, right? And they have, they're superstars, but their team is a team of often millennials and Gen Zers that are fresh out of college, green grads, and they're hitting the workforce, and they have limited training and limited knowledge. By the way, they have every single one of their employees mandatory in the office every single day, and their employees love working there. It's pretty remarkable. And my point is that they had to trade off in other ways, but they were able to achieve getting people in every single day in the office because they know that that's the best way to communicate to their customers, veterans, and their families to make a difference. And so let's take a look at their mission. Their mission is building the #1 mortgage company in America, serving service members, veterans, and their families. Okay. Their purpose is realizing the American dream for those who made ours possible. Pretty good, right? How do you realize the American dream every single day when you're on the phone, right? How do I build the #1 mortgage company every single day when I'm on the phone with a veteran? What I can do is the customer experience action statement. It's my turn to serve you, make a positive impact every time. I can find ways to make a positive impact every time. I can find ways to deliver on that. And so that's what we call a customer experience action statement.
It's not just an idea. It is a profound reality when you let it sink in. That your work is the opportunity of a lifetime. It's time to make it so. There is this thing that only humans do. This thing that shapes us into who we are. It's called work. Our way to make life better for ourselves and for others. There are few places where you get to dedicate so much focus to one pursuit. So many hours, so many days, so many years that can either feel like a life sentence or your life's work. Choose to accept the power of this opportunity. It's where your highest potential is called to make extraordinary things happen. And this work is in us, so deeply in us. This is our DNA. It's how humans, you and I, have found a way to solve problems that are bigger than we are. Our work is the way we lift people up, the way we improve what's happening around us. It creates masterpieces, creates master plans. This is your work that can only come from you, that uses your gifts to make a difference in your life and outside of it, uses your abilities to make a mark that matters. Now, I get it. I understand that it may not feel this way today. I get the sadness and the strain. I know the day in and day out battle that can dominate our days. There's no need to be naive. Work drains and it drives. It has this seductive power to lead us astray. No question, there is a pressure. But we can't forget the promise. Tension can be traded for momentum. There's a greatness that builds as we rise up to be at our best. You are bound in a very unique way to build your life's work. It's a platform to change the world, the opportunity of a lifetime. So let's get to work.
Creating a culture that resonates with both generations involves continuous check-ins, providing flexibility, learning opportunities, updated tools, open feedback loops, and uphold ethical standards. I love that video because it really does find a way to show us that regardless of who we are, we're meant to work, and regardless of when we were born or where we were born, for a lot of people, it's a huge portion of our lives. And unless you marry rich, which I'm hoping to do eventually, but the truth is that, you know, we have to find ways to motivate our staff on how, you know, to do that. The work that we're doing is really meaningful. And I think for all of us, it's true. Like a lot of our businesses are providing meaningful work. But it's just telling that story. And I think that that's why a customer experience action statement is just something that's really an easy way to start, an easy place to start. So before I end, you know, what is the most dangerous phrase in business? It's because that is how it's always been done. And the best way to look at that is this, you know, neither Redbox nor Netflix are even on the radar screen in terms of competition. This is what the former CEO of Blockbuster had said. His video chain filed bankruptcy 2 years later, and today Netflix is worth $165.5 billion. I bet Jim wishes he had tried something different. And so while this is much more about changing a product, and you don't have to change your product, all I mean is to show is that let's not be averse to change. We don't have to have this aversion to making, you know, some changes, big or small, to protect the sustainability and trajectory of growth for our companies. So it's not impossible. Netflix did it. They didn't give up and they started with DVDs. So anyway, I want to open this up to some questions. I know Lindsay is able to see those. So please put some questions in the chat box and I will happily answer those. Otherwise, we can connect via email, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. And I look forward to chatting with you guys.
Thanks, Cal. Just going to give it a couple more seconds just in case we had any questions come through. And again, for anyone who joined a few minutes late, I just wanted to reiterate real quick that you will be getting a follow-up from us. It'll include a copy of the recording from today's webinar, as well as Cal's a PDF copy of his slide deck. So you'll have that as a frame of reference. And the DiJulius group, our different consultants, including our owner, John, will be hosting webinars throughout the rest of this year. So I will include all of those in the follow-up email as well, in case any of the topics are things that you would also like to hear more about. All right. I think we are good on questions. I want to thank everyone for joining us.
We have one. Oh, thanks, Captain.
Oh, wait.
No, that's
Wait,
I'm curious to hear how Gen X use technology today differently than the good old. Well, I mean, we were born with it, right? So we don't have to, there's not as much of a learning curve, and we're constantly able to adapt to new tech. So that's, I think, the best advantage, that we don't have to, learn. It doesn't take us as long to learn because we're constantly given a new iPhone every year for some of us. So we are not scared of tech, and it's been, a huge part of our lives.
Absolutely. All right. Well, if you guys have any other questions, please feel free to reach out either to myself or obviously Cal. We'd be more than happy to give you any other information that you need. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a fabulous rest of your day. Happy early Thanksgiving. And thanks, Lavisa. That's awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Enjoy the rest. Take care.